so I have my paper towel, I have my art paper. My dog is barking. There are some kids playing outside. So he's letting them know that he's here. And I'm starting off with the magenta that I have watered down. Alright, so part of the reason why I'm using this quill brush is because it is larger, it holds a lot of water, and it forces me to be a bit looser than the brush that I use a lot, which is the number 6 round brush. So you can see how much bigger it is and how much more paint and water it holds. Alright, so for the first part, I'm going to be putting in the pink flower petals, and it's kind of an upside down cone shape. So here we go. These petals, there are usually 4 or 5 of them in these flowers. You can do however many you want. And they will be on top of each other as well. But we want to leave some of the white areas so that later on we can go and put in the bits of yellow that they have. Next step will be to add in just a little bit of the quinacridone violet, just every once in a while, here and there. We are going to put in a couple of the leaves, and violets have those beautiful heart-shaped leaves. So your heart shape might not be perfect if you're using a large quill brush like I am, and that is okay. I want this to feel a little more free-form, a little more loose. Need to get so fiddly with this. Okay, that's about what I was thinking. Alright, so the petals are still drying. I can go ahead and put in the little bit of twine. That will be holding all these stems together. So this is the burnt sienna with a little bit of green. Well, maybe too much green. Put a little more burnt sienna in there. So there's a bit of twine. It's holding all these stems together. And I do love using this thicker brush because it forces me to be looser about things, but it can also be a little bit difficult sometimes as well. You're trying to be a little more, do smaller details, it can be a little difficult. But that's good because it forces you to loosen up a bit. And that might be just a bit too dark. There we go. Alright. I'll come back to that as well. And more colors in here. Alright. Next we have the ribbon or the twine that, let's see, down, and should have watered it down a bit more, but there we go. And I'm going to be putting in violets. So here's the darkest, bluest purple, and I want to put a couple in right over here. So I'll have, it's almost like a heart shape. You have the two petals on the top, and then you have one larger petal on the bottom. And then 1, 2 smaller petals on the side of that larger petal that's on the bottom. Go. Then you can make sure, if you'd like to, the top and the bottom can touch. You can leave a little space in the center. It's up to you how you want yours to look. Then I'm also putting in a little bit of the magenta. I think it might be a little too wet to show it. Soak some of that back up. Okay. Now I can put in some of the magenta. Here we go. Dab it right in there. And then I'll go for the next violet. And I have one right here. So we have bunny ear, one on the bottom, and then the two smaller ones right next to each other. Or right on either side of that longer bottom one. And with this brush, it's really easy to get a lot of water and paint all at once. So be kind of careful not to overwhelm if you're painting something really tiny. I think the violets. And I'm just dabbing a little bit of the dark violet right in the center. I think it's fun to make each violet look just a little bit different. So next I think I'll start with magenta. And let it come out here, I think. This one's going to be a bud, so it's a bit of a different shape, where it's kind of still unfurling. So it swoops down a bit, and then it has a petal that comes even further out. And towards the inside, it's swooping up, petal, another petal swooping up. And then the flower kind of cascades down a bit. Going back and forth with this bit. Just gotta stop touching it. Let it do its thing. It's hard for me to do. And then the petal that comes down, and then down one more even further. Go. About like that. Let's get this a little more pointed maybe. There we go. Go ahead and put in some of the stems. I'm going to lighten this up a little bit. And go back to our greens. Maybe I'll put in the lighter green first. We have this whole area. We are going to be making into the stems. Certainly painted on top of that petal. So, if it was more wet, it would be fun for it to blend in with it, but since it's dry, it'll just look like a waterline on top of it. Go. Okay. A little longer. Low to dark. There we go. Okay. And while that's drying, so we'll put more lines on top of it, give it more definition. Oh my goodness. Paper towels. Very, very wet at this point. Paper towel itself could be a beautiful painting. Okay, so while we are waiting for this to dry, here we go. You can go ahead and put in the little bits of yellow in the center of the flowers. For this, I'm using a cadmium yellow light. So just every once in a while, in one of the white areas, I am putting in a little bit of the yellow, as if it's the center of one of the primroses. Alright, I think that's pretty good. Next, I'm going to go in with some more of the magenta rose, the PR 122, and add on some more petals. Just give some of the areas a little more interest, a little more color. Just a second layer of color to those petals. Okay, I will go into this flower here one more time. Kind of hinting at violets being there in the background without having to paint in more violets themselves. Okay. Alright, so the next step is I'm going to wait for this area to dry, and I think this area is dry enough where I can add in some more detail. So I'm going to go in with this darker color that we mixed earlier. And add a little more detail. Here's some of that purple. I like to bring the colors from what's going on in the main event to the little details down below. Be a little too stark. Here we go. Purple, you have to be careful with. It is a lot more difficult, or the violet, to pick back up once you put it down. It tends to not want to budge. Go over that with a darker, cooler color than I have. I put just a little bit of that purple, really dark violet, brush. Alright, so we're going to add some of those little thin primrose leaves. And then also the stems come up and then down for these violets, the babies. Okay. And then we have a stem here I want to add in. Also we're missing purple right where, put a shadow right where that, oops, out. And maybe just a little bit more shadow here. Need a bit more with the brown. I know there's a lot of grasses people use, different dried bits that go in bouquets, and it can be fun to try to make it look like you have dried seeds or little bits of this and that in your bouquet, some of those fillers. Can't decide if I like that or not. It's supposed to be loosening up though, so I should just put it down and let it go. I can. Okay. Bits might be a little dark when they dry, so I'm gonna go ahead and lighten them up. Just dabbing them very carefully. Ensure I'm using clean, dry paper towel. There we go. Might want just a couple darker. One last thing I want to do is create more of the shadow within this leaf. And then I'm going to put all right, I really like that. Thank you so much for joining me today for this loose primrose and violet bouquet. I hope that you get the chance to create today, and I will see you next time.